We are ready to start. Great.
Okay. I would like first of all to express our gratitude and thanks to Christina and her team for giving us this opportunity to present World Scientific to um, the academic staff at Purdue. And I want to say that particularly Purdue is very important to both World Scientific and to me for a number of reasons. One is that World Scientific has had a very important strategic cooperation with Purdue for many years now, and I will be talking about this a little bit later in this presentation. But also, of course, my own background originally was in mechanical engineering, the area where Purdue is so well known. And I feel that I have a special connection also to the Midwestern universities, as I spent a long time ago, but I spent some time at the University of Illinois doing my postdoc, practically next door to Indiana. And so it gives a great pleasure to talk about World Scientific. I've spent since then in scientific publishing many years. And it gives a great pleasure to talk about the possible cooperation and the extension of our cooperation between World Scientific and Purdue. My name is Tzvi Ruder. I am a senior executive publisher at World Scientific. And with me today here are two of my colleagues, Ms. Ruth Zhou, who is a marketing and sales manager at the US office of World Scientific in New Jersey, and Ms. Gabrielle Rawlinson, who is a production editor at World Scientific in London, in the UK. Our colleagues at the headquarters of World Scientific in Singapore very much wanted to talk to you as well today to join us, but unfortunately the time difference of 12 hours didn't allow for that. But they would be open to any follow-up inquiries or additional questions. And so we decided that today, since the time is limited, that I will go through the presentation, through the slides. And if there are any additional questions today, particularly about marketing and sales and production related issues, then Ruth and Gabrielle would respond to these questions here online, specifically about marketing and production. So World Scientific was founded 44 years ago by a high energy physicist, a little bit of history, Professor Poor and Mrs. Doreen Liu. At that time, the case was made that on the one hand, it was difficult for some of the scientists, particularly in Asia, to find a forum for high quality scientific publications. And on the other hand, it was noted that many commercial publishers were known for very high prices of their publications, and the university publishers, particularly, were not business savvy enough to distribute the information broadly. And so there was a desire to create a scientific publisher that would address all these issues. And this attempt was very successful. And this is how World Scientific was created. And now, of course, World Scientific is a well-known global publisher, but it's also the largest scientific publisher in Asia, as the headquarters have always been in Singapore, and that allowed for very strong appeal towards the emerging Asian markets, particularly in the Pacific Rim and in India. The creation of World Scientific 44 years ago was supported and helped by very well-known scientists, particularly by Nobel laureates, Professor Chen-Ning Yang, who was a 57 Nobel laureate, and Professor Abdus Salam, a 79 Nobel laureate. And they've also become not only supporters, but very prominent authors for World Scientific in early stages of its development. The vision of World Scientific, as expressed here on this slide, is connecting great minds globally to advance research, education, and knowledge. And the mission is to provide a complete publishing experience with author-centric and industry reading services. And I would like to emphasize these two last points because really among the scientific publishers of today, World Scientific perhaps is the most author-oriented publisher that can be found. Not only is it author-centric, as it is called here, but also it provides leading services, including the technologies that are used in the scientific publishing operations of today. World Scientific is perhaps the last one or one of the last ones of the scientific publishers that is entirely family owned. And that has some very positive aspects with regards to our relationship with the authors. Because most of the publishers today, they are owned either by private equity firms or by shareholders, which makes them not particularly flexible towards authors' needs. World Scientific, on the other hand, is owned by the family, who is extremely dedicated and devoted to helping the scientific community in its publishing needs. And I would also like to mention that World Scientific is proud of its efficiency and professionalism at all levels. And the authors will testify to that, and there are testimonies that will be mentioned in this presentation by prominent authors from their experience of working with World Scientific. Right now, we have 9 regional offices worldwide and a professional network of partners in sales and distribution. And of course, we're very strongly relying on the advice and opinion of scientific community, both as far as our authors, as far as our editors, and as far as our advisors in different fields. Here on this slide, you can see the geographic location of the offices. And as you can see, there's, of course, an office in the US. There are offices in Europe and in the Pacific Rim and in Asia in general, including in India. There are offices in Beijing, Shanghai, Taipei, and of course, the headquarters in Singapore. And I think that since this slide was created, there's been additional offices created worldwide. Overall, World Scientific employs about 500 employees globally. The market share of World Scientific in books, as you can see here on the left half of the slide, is about 48% in Asia Pacific, about 30% in the US, and about 20% in Europe. And in journals, it's interesting to see that it's almost an equal distribution among Asia Pacific and the US, and close to that in Europe as well. There are three most important publishing programs that World Scientific has. One is, and for Purdue, it's of great importance, is engineering and the physical sciences, which is the major and the oldest program since its creation. And that, of course, includes also material science, nanosciences, bioengineering, computer science, mathematics, and so on. Then we have a very robust and a very dynamic and very fast-growing program in the social sciences. And that includes business, economics, finance, innovation, management, and so on. And then somewhat separate from that is the program dealing with Asian and China studies. And for World Scientific, who is so strong in Asia, this is also quite an important program. As far as the subject areas are concerned, as I mentioned, engineering and the physical sciences and engineering occupies a very important and plays a very important role. We're also very prominent in physics as well as in chemistry. And that includes also nanosciences in both fields, in computer science, mathematics, environmental science, and climate-related research. World Scientific is one of the leading publishers. We have a very important program in business and economics, including the participation of Nobel Prize laureates, and I will talk about this in a few minutes. And also there is a program dealing with healthcare and medicine and life sciences related aspects. And of course, as I mentioned, social sciences and Asian studies. World Scientific, one of the main features that World Scientific is so well known for globally is its historical partnership with Nobel Foundation in Stockholm, with which we have an exclusive agreement allowing us to publish Nobel lectures. I think ever from 1901 until now, we published them. And indeed, among Nobel laureates, there is a great number of authors, editors, advisors, and so on. Here is some of the Nobel Prize laureates that constitute an important part of our authorship, the pool of authors. And no doubt that Purdue staff know all of these names. Among them, such names as Pierre-Gilles de Gennes, Martinus Weltman, De Hooft, Yoichiro Nambu, and others. In addition to Nobel Foundation, World Scientific is also well known for publishing Wolf Prize series, which is an extremely important and highly prestigious series of publications from Weizmann Institute. There is also Einstein Memorial Lectures that World Scientific is known for publishing, also Fields Medalist Lectures, and some others. Here is another list of more recent Nobel Prize laureates that are among our authors. Anton Zeilinger is one of them, who is, of course, a 2022 Nobel Prize in Physics. Benjamin List and Mungi Bawendi are the two Nobelists in chemistry, and so on. And here, there are some additional Nobel laureates among our authors. And among the really latest Nobelists, John Hopfield, who received Nobel Prize in Physics in 2024, has published with us quite an important work on spin glass theory. David Baker, a Nobelist in chemistry, received his Nobel Prize in 2024. Daron Acemoglu and Simon Johnson received the Nobel Prize in Economics in 2024. I would also like to mention that not only in books authorship, but also a series that we have in many disciplines, including in economics, for example. One of the theories we have in economic theory is edited by 2007 Nobelist Eric Maskin at Harvard, and many others. And also, it's important to mention in this regard that Nobel authors are very prominent with us, not only in books, but also in journals. And here are some the Nobelists that are listed as either journals editors-in-chief or members of the editorial boards of some of our journals. In addition to that, I would like to mention that the World Scientific has some very interesting, very beneficial and unique partnerships with well-known societies. For example, World Scientific distributes globally publications by the Mathematical Society of Japan, which is the first academic society in Japan founded back in 1877. So, for example, their flagship journal, the Japanese Journal of Mathematics, was launched in 1924. There are also other partnerships, including with societies based in the United States. One of them is, for example, our partnership with the Society of Porphyrins, and that is an important society in chemistry. And we publish their journal in porphyrins and phosphocyanides through the partnership with the president of the society and the founder of the society, Professor Carl Kadish, who is a distinguished professor at the University of Houston in Texas, and many others. As far as the types of publications that World Scientific publishes, of course, there are books, there are journals, and books and journals more or less have equal share in World Scientific revenues, which is an important factor. We also publish major reference works, which is I would say, a special type of publication that stands to a degree in between journals and books. And if somebody is interested, of course, we can address it separately. It's a very interesting issue by itself. We also publish, have interest in high scientific quality databases and in any other publications, and we are open to different ideas and proposals from the scientific community in this regard. As far as books are concerned, we publish different types. As you know, there are different types of book publications, and those include monographs. Those include textbooks, both graduate and undergraduate, and related publication to textbooks, and I know that this is of special interest to Purdue, lecture notes publications. To a degree, these two types are connected, related to each other, but World Scientific is to a degree unique among scientific publishers because we have a great interest in lecture notes in different fields. And of course, we treat them just as we treat other publications as far as benefits to authors. Many publishers do not, for example, pay royalties for lecture notes. We pay usual royalties for lecture notes just as we pay for any other publications to the authors. We're also interested in edited volumes. We're interested in handbooks. And as I mentioned before, we are very interested in major reference works. We publish over 600 books on the average a year. And this is in various fields of science, technology, and medicine. And just as far as some examples of our close cooperation on book fronts with Purdue specifically, I would like to mention a few examples. One of them is the recently launched but already quite rapidly growing series with under the leadership of Professor Wojtek Szpankowski of Purdue's Computer Science Department, a series that deals with quantum algorithms, information and learning, a very, very hot topic. And we're very thankful to Professor Szpankowski for his support and help with the development of this series. And of course, I would like to mention two extremely important and very influential and highly prestigious series under the leadership of Professor Mark Lundstrom. One of them is a series that is called Lessons from Nanoscience, a series of lecture notes. And the other one is a newer series that is called the New Era Electronics, that Mark is co-editing with two of his colleagues, Professor Ashraf Alam and Professor Vijay Raghunathan. I would also like to mention, it's not here on this slide, but I'd like to mention our cooperation with Professor Supriya Datta, who is the editor-in-chief of the Physical Sciences part of a very, very promising and rapidly developing journal in innovation and emerging technologies. And very soon he will be joined by another colleague from Purdue as well, Professor Morinaro, and we look forward to their cooperation on further development and growth of this very important journal. Whenever I say books that we're interested in, of course, it already presupposes that the books are of highest possible scientific quality. And so here, there is a little bit of a statistics for the authors from Purdue, namely that about 63%, it's over 100 of our journals are indexed in the Web of Science, 74%, over 130 journals indexed in Scopus, over 1,600 of monographs indexed in Book Citation Index, over 5,200 of monographs that were published indexed in Scopus. And we continue to make sure that our publications get maximum exposure through indexing services, as much as we have an influence on that, and for the benefit of the authors as far as their visibility on a global level. Of course, I would like to also to mention that whatever we publish in two different formats. Usually it's published in print format and in electronic format. The electronic publishing began back in 1996, shortly after Amazon launched its first online bookshop. And now over 12,000 ebooks are available through major aggregators, and I think that Ruth certainly would be able to comment on that in more detail. But those include EBSCO, ProQuest, Amazon, Kindle, and all other important aggregators of electronic information. And by electronic publishing programs and deals, of course, also our electronic textbook is covered. So our digital content now are accessible to more than 45,000 different, I would say, institutional buyers, universities, libraries, and organizations worldwide, which do not include the individual buyers, which is somewhat of a different story and different operation. So who are buying the World Scientific ebooks, and by ebooks I also include there, of course, the lecture notes that um, Purdue is so interested in, and these are major institutions worldwide, and those include such institutions as, for example, ETH in Zurich, Stanford, Monash in Australia, Pierre et Marie Curie in France, institutions in Asia, in Europe, Australia, and as far as New Zealand. So worldwide. And as far as adoptions of textbooks and lecture notes, this is a very small excerpt from a very large list. You can see here major institutions that include Harvard, MIT, Stanford, Princeton, Cambridge University, universities in Asia, including in Japan, and of course in Europe as well. We have subject collections that we offer to buyers, and those correspond to major topics of publications, including engineering, the primary interest of Purdue, of course, but also physical sciences, and that includes physics, chemistry, computer science, mathematics, and in all other areas that I mentioned before. As far as purchasing options, World Scientific is extremely flexible as far as its negotiations with buyers, for multi-site arrangements, and for other arrangements. And once again, as far as the marketing and sales of our publications, Ruth would be able to comment if there are any inquiries regarding these particular aspects. As far as the journals at World Scientific, we publish journals of different kinds, and those include archival research papers journal, overview papers, short communications, combined journals that publish all of the above, and of course some of the scientific magazines as well. And as I mentioned before, our contributors to journals, both the authors and advisors, members of the board, also include a very great number of very well-known scientists, including Nobel laureates. For example, here, among others, you see also Frank Wilczek from MIT. You see also Professor Yang and others that contribute to our journals. And just as books, we cover a very wide range of subjects in the journals themselves. We publish around 180 scientific journals. And I would say this number all the time grows because World Scientific continues to start and sometimes also acquire and co-publish scientific journals, which reflects the development of scientific research. And sometimes it's better to start new journals, and sometimes it's better to start new sections in already established journals, depending on the field. And many of the journals, usually it's the question from the authors, many of the journals are also, of course, indexed by the ISI. For those who would be interested, this is one of the tables that can give a little bit more of a detailed information per journal as to what exactly is covered. As I mentioned, we publish over 180 journals as of today. Around 40 of them are completely open access journals in various fields. And those include also among our most prestigious journals, include, for example, the International Journal of Modern Physics, which is extremely well known. The Journal of Mathematical Logic and the International Journal of Modern Physics B are both ranked top 10 in their respective categories. Among new important journals, I would like to mention a few, and they only serve as examples that even in the current economic environment, still sometimes when there is a niche, when you start new journals, they could be extremely successful. Some of these, for example, relatively new journals that were started is the Climate Change Economics Journal that was started by us relatively recently. It's already indexed by SSAI, started from Yale with the editor-in-chief at Yale, Professor Mendelssohn. We started the Singapore Economic Review Journal, and we started, for example, Water Economics and Policy Journal. And as you know, water is a very, very important topic today. Started under the editorship of Professor Dinar from the University of California, Riverside. Recently, he moved to New York from there. Related to the operational aspects, I would not dwell on this too long, but in principle, we are completely open to the suggestions from the scientific community as far as their desire to publish. And in this slide, one can see how the process works from the submission through review, through publication, and then through promotion. The electronic management system that World Scientific uses for reviewing and article processing operation is a very efficient and very well working system. And it's sort of the standard in scientific industry for journal operation. Now, Christina asked me to talk a little bit about the business models that is used by World Scientific in both books and journal publishing, but primarily in book publishing. So as far as World Scientific is concerned, all types of business models are used depending on many factors. One of them, of course, is a traditional business model, and this is subscription-based business model for journals. And for some of the journals, or for many journals, in fact, today, the electronic business model, in other words, content license-based model, is also applied. And in many cases, journals also use the combined business model, whereby we're open to the wishes of specific authors, and the journal could combine in its operation both the open access paradigms, for example, and traditional paradigms, as per the point, last point in this slide. As far as book operation is concerned, there are I would say, two pillars of the business model that remain valid regardless of recent technological developments in scientific publishing. One of these pillars or these aspects is that no matter what happens, the scientific quality of content remains the king of scientific publishers. And of course, that remains the primary criterion for our decision on publication. But the other one is that World Scientific Publishing is a portfolio management business to a degree. And I would like to draw your attention to this slide that shows how it actually works. It's an important aspect of scientific publishing because, as we all know, there are many cases when there are important publications, scientifically very impactful publications, but they have very small markets and narrow markets. So in order for it to succeed, there need to be publications that could carry on their back, so to speak, scientifically very important, but narrow market-oriented publications. And so if you look at this slide, it shows that if you plot revenues of the publishers versus number of copies, then there is a kind of a parabola emerges, whereby on the right hand, you see the type of publications that are based on the model when there are a number of copies sold quite big, and therefore these are extremely profitable publications for the publishers, like for example textbooks. On the left side is the number of publications when the number of copies perhaps are not so big, but they could carry a premium price, and these are major reference works. And these are two types of publications that could carry on their back quite a significant number of narrow market monographs that still were very interested to publish because they have very high scientific impact. So now the question, of course, is with other scientific publishing existing globally, why do we urge scientific community to publish with us? And the answer is that, first of all, as I mentioned before, World Scientific is an extremely author-oriented publisher. And so personal attention that authors usually get from working with World Scientific is unparalleled. And I can say that because I myself have worked in my long career at many publishers, and I can compare them. And from that perspective, World Scientific is indeed maybe one of the most author-oriented companies that exist. World Scientific is also well known for fast-track editorial process, and also for new techniques, including the electronic publishing techniques. World Scientific is also well known, and this is very well, it's a very important feature for authors, specifically of textbooks and lecture notes, that it is a company that is well known for very moderately pricing most of their publications, especially the textbooks and the lecture notes. The other aspect is, and many people are asking about this, is that World Scientific is known for offering discounts to developing countries, where both institutions and individuals, perhaps for them it's difficult to pay market prices that are applied, let's say, in Europe or in the US. So we offer quite generous discounts for students and researchers in developing countries. And of course, worldwide sales and marketing offices of World Scientific are very active, both through direct mailing, conferences and exhibitions, in bookshops and email announcement, through social media these days, and in many other aspects. And Ruth would be the best person to address these aspects. Here I give a few testimonies of very well-known scientists who work with World Scientific and who share their very good experiences of working with us. And we hope that those who are now listening to this webinar, or those who will just look at the slides later, would be able to read these testimonies by their colleagues. Here are some numbers as far as marketing and distribution activities. For many people, it's very important, maybe less important from the perspective of the business operation, but more important from the perspective of global visibility of their works. And the World Scientific is well known for its penetration into university libraries. This 45,000 research and university libraries is a very big amount where World Scientific has been very successful. And of course, extensive social media and digital marketing campaigns play a very important role in the marketing department of World Scientific globally. And I'm already not mentioning, of course, the conferences, leaflets, and catalogs that we create regularly, appealing to both individual and institutional markets. So the marketing, for example, uses both direct mail, reviewing and advertising, international book fairs and conferences, very actively using booksellers, librarians, and sales representatives worldwide. And of course, nowadays, it's all done digitally on the internet anyway. The publicity campaigns are also done very regularly for publications through major channels. Some of them are listed here, and those include also social media channels. And I'm just repeating that because there are constant questions nowadays as to what is being done through social media. The publishing process, I think Christina has asked me to address this briefly as well, and I would like to mention this feature. World Scientific, as authors find, in addition to being author-friendly, it's also extremely non-bureaucratic place, which authors find very attractive. Decisions are made very quickly, and the formalities, even though some of them are important, but we're also cognizant of the fact that nowadays the scientific community is extremely busy and people are very busy, and it's just easier to talk sometimes and discuss things quickly rather than to stick to a lot of formalities. But in principle, as usual, in order to submit the book proposal, we're asking to send some outline of the ideas. The step number 2, when these ideas are accepted and we sign the agreement with the author, then we give the author plenty of time. We are flexible time-wise, usually, which is very important to emphasize here. And then we just let the author develop the manuscript. And step 3 would be to send it to production. Once the agreement with authors is signed, which is, by the way, a very short and very sort of generic document, then World Scientific usually assigns a desk editor, essentially a product manager, who works with the author, helping him or her to move forward with the creation of the manuscript and also to be responsible for the production and publication process. Yeah, so this is more or less the steps that I outlined. And as I mentioned, considering the workload on the scientists today, sometimes we just decide to discuss in an informal way the ideas and decide based on the understanding of these ideas, decide to move forward. For those who are interested in more details, there are also author kit by World Scientific that outlines all these details. It is easily downloadable from World Scientific website. And also the templates, in many cases, authors are asking about that. Of course, the desk editor would be able to provide to the authors the templates, but also they are downloadable also from the site and also from the author kit that I just mentioned. Towards the end of the creation of the manuscript, we usually ask the authors to fill out a very simple promotional questionnaire. It's a very simple document for the authors to fill, but very important for the marketing people who will then learn from it the details as to the community on whom to concentrate for the promotion of the future book, and also the unique feature of this publication. And that would be very good to do at an early stage as possible, because these days, the sooner the market is involved and is informed about the forthcoming publication, the more successful this publication would be globally. Of course, needless to say that book production also involves copy editing, reformatting if needed. We also sometimes do deep copy editing from the perspective of the language. The index compilation takes a few weeks as well. So overall, on the average, it takes a few months to create the book. But this process is being accelerating. And I would say that World Scientific is very competitive as far as the time that is required for book production. And with that, I would like to thank you for giving this opportunity again to present these slides. And if there are any specific questions, then we would be very happy to respond to you.
Thank you so much, Zvi, for this detailed overview of World Scientific, the programs that you lead, and the successful authors you have published through the years. Thanks so much for the special highlight on the Purdue series and the Purdue authors, and the overview of how an author can get published. I want to thank our audience as well for participating today, and I want to highlight the fact that over the last 4 to 5 months, the collaboration with World Scientific has grown a lot. We currently have over 30 projects on the roll, and some of them are advancing very rapidly. We are extremely happy to work with Zvi and the team to see how fast contracts can be issued. I think we've hit some records between the email when we introduced the author to Zvi and the World Scientific team, and when the contracts get signed. So we're extremely happy to see that type of collaboration. I'd like to open it up for questions now from the Purdue audience and see what else they would like to know about World Scientific and how to get started if they want to publish a book with you, Zvi. Please raise your hand or just turn on your camera, and happy to address any questions that may come up. So I can describe a little bit what happens on our end for our audience if you're interested. When a faculty member expresses interest to publish a book, then we meet with them and try to understand what's the rationale, what's the reason for publishing that book, and then we try to match them with the publisher. At that point, we send them the proposal template for what we consider is a good fit. Then the author would complete that proposal, which I then take and I forward it to Zvi, and I carbon copy the author. So then I make a quick introduction, and then from there, Zvi reaches out to the author, and they schedule a meeting, and they go over the details of the proposal and the project. So Zvi has more information before a decision is made. So from there, the interaction is completely between the author and the publisher. So Purdue is not a party to the contract. We don't take any revenue or royalties. We don't have any rights to the content that the author is developing. So it's entirely a connection and a contract between the author and the publisher. So looking forward to having many of you go that route, express your interest in a book and reach out to us, so then we can discuss options, or feel free to reach out directly to Zvi. His email and contact information is part of this recording, so go ahead and reach out directly. Eventually, we can connect back on the Purdue end to see if this project would be eligible for the Purdue Book Initiative. Any other comments or questions? Then I want to thank everyone for your participation today. And thank you, Zvi and Gabriel and Ruth, for your partnership. And we look forward to creating more books together. Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you very much. Bye-bye.